Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to yet again another fantastic indie creator interview. It's your Cape Crusader Cody, and we're keeping it geekly with our new guest, Travis Gibb. We're here to break down No Contest, issue 1 and 2, and everything in between. And before we step into the octagon, Travis, welcome to the stream. How are you doing tonight, man?
Dude, it's great, man. It's a good night. I got my kids to bed early. I got to do a lot of comic stuff today, which is good. So it's been a good day. Good day all around. So happy to be relaxing. I was up till like 3 doing edits last night, so I'm ready to do this interview, do one more, and then put in an early night for once.
Wow. I mean, you had me right there the whole entire. I was up late last night. Kids went smooth, right to bed, had an awesome day. But another interview after this. You are a man of just like pure workload. Holy crap, man. I have a lot of respect for that. How do you keep it going? You just playing it when all the kids are sleeping? Like,
yeah, I just, I want it. It sounds like kind of douchey, but like I really want it. Like, so I work extra hard at it. I spend the extra hours and do it. It's not that I don't slack off. And my creative mind, the way it works is I tend to like process a lot. So I'll do a little bit, and then it all hits me at once. And I need to be ready to do that. It's all going to come out, because I'll do like 12 pages. I'll have done like 3 the week before, but like, this is like 12 to 14 to 20. So I've got to be ready for when my brain wants to like ignite. So I work really hard, and, I'm doing stuff and learning new things, direct market this year, and just trying to figure out the balance of life in comics.
It's a hard balance to find. I mean, even just life and consuming comics. So I can't even imagine creating them. But before we get into that, let's begin with the basics. Who are you and how did you begin your first steps into the journey of creating comics?
Yeah, so I'm Travis Gibb. I was born in Rochester, New Hampshire. The reason why I say that is because it's very impartial to my growing up. So I'm in my 40s, and I grew up around where the Ninja Turtles are from. So Rochester, New Hampshire, and Dover, New Hampshire are right next to each other. So for me, like comics and indie comics were such a thing. It was a big in our town. These local guys made it. Peter Lard, Kevin Eastman were making it, doing their crazy thing. So I started collecting very early, very young. I've collected, Amazing Spider-Man and X-Men ever since I was a kid. I have every issue since I was 12 years old. It was wild, and that's not counting every issue appearance of Carnage and Venom. And like, I'm a huge collector. I love the comics. And I always wanted to do a creative process. In fact, I went to college for film. But when I was in film school, I broke off into, I realized that when I applied for credit cards, I didn't get as many as Kevin Smith. For some reason, he got a lot more approvals than I did. Probably better upbringing family. I don't know. So I had to do stuff, and I found out comics were a lot cheaper. So I started doing some comics on the side and doing a few stuff. And then it's just grown into a career over time,
So you basically just broke away from film because the finances, weren't there?
Well, that was the other thing. And then I had how do you say this politely? I got someone pregnant.
I get that. I had 3 kids myself. That tends to throw a little monkey wrench into what you're able to do, right? Like,
and I always wanted to be a good dad. My dad wasn't great. I've shared very publicly, my parents were drug addicts, and so I had a rough upbringing. In fact, my dad died over an overdose a couple of years ago. So being a good dad was super important to me. So I stopped everything to just be a dad. So I was just like, all right, cool. I'm going to get a job, started web design and doing marketing. And I own a web design company, so it worked out really well for me. But that was my focus, is just being a dad. And it took, finding my wife, through very trials and tribulations, finding my wife who's just like, why can't you do both? Like, I needed someone to tell me, hey, because the mother of my child was not my wife. We did not get married.
I feel that too. 3 children, 3 different mothers.
All right.
Life comes at you fast. We have Wesley Gibb. Travis Gibb is the man. Welcome to the channel, Wesley. Appreciate you joining us over on Facebook. Man, and it's one of those things too, like being a father, you're so determined on making your children, raising them giving them everything you didn't have, the experience you didn't have. But in that aspect, yeah, I mean, you're taking away something because you're not giving that experience to yourself too, right? Like you're not enjoying what you want to enjoy, because there is a balance that you can walk between the two. I myself run a lot of my podcasting. When I have my kids, I don't like to do any of this. Like I know we were trying to coordinate a date to set this up. I'm like, hey man, if we can get this while they're at school or after their bedtime, let's run it. Like, and I think finding that balance like lets you bring back your hobbies and stuff, because I think a big part of this is bad parents, they're just not ready to be parents, right? They still want to be kids. They still want to follow their dreams and their passions, and right. I relate to that, man, a ton.
Yeah, I mean, I was still storytelling, in that I'm a gamer, so I was doing live action role playing. So I was doing huge live action games, like huge 100-player games, so I was doing that on the regular. So I was still telling stories, but there's no way to make that profitable, right? There's no, you're telling those LARPs or running your Dungeons and Dragons game. Very few people, very, very few, like less than comics, can make a living off of that, right?
And they're still doing it. They're not giving that up.
Right. So, it took a long time in growing up and figuring out, because, and I'm lucky I did LARP, live action role playing, because at a time you look around and you're like, oh, I'm the creepy old guy. I always hated that guy. Crap, I'm there now. Like I'm at that age. So you're like, all right, I got to start phasing out. And, what happened was my wife found a book called Broke Down in 4 Dead Bodies. I had a full 2 issues done in a folder. I was just showing her like, oh yeah, you did the comic. She's like, that's really stupid that you have a full completed comic in a folder and it's not done. And I had no comeback for that. Like, what do you say? Like, you're right. That is really dumb. Like, because I knew about Kickstarter, I knew about all these things. So we produced it, and now we're doing like 12 titles a year. It's ridiculous.
Wow. And all it took was just a push from your wife to get the momentum going. It's remarkable how it just takes that little spark to ignite the whole fire.
Yeah.
So what was that story about? You said you already had the first 4 issues already pretty much done?
And first 2 issues. I had the first 2 issues done. It's all broke down in 4 Dead Bodies. It's completely done. It's all finished. In fact, later this year, we're going to go in a graphic novel. And it was, so I love crime comics. There's not a lot of them out, but I love crime comics. And I always wanted to tell one like I liked when I was a kid. So it's like Quentin Tarantino inspired, like crime comics. So it's about 2 guys who break down on the side of the road. They have 4 dead bodies in the trunk in a case. And they have to deal with that situation, right? They're supposed to get the case to a certain person. They have bodies. They have people who are investigating, and tons of people have to get them, from a biker gang, from a Mexican drug cartel, to the police, to random farmers who are driving by, to the guy who owns the case. Everybody's out to get them. And these 2 guys don't like each other. But it's a big whodunit. There's a big twist at the end and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a 4 issue. It's about 150 pages long, but it was super fun to do, and I was so happy to get back and get that out and finished, and finally putting it in trade this year because we've been so busy. It finished, I think, 2 years ago. Never got a chance to put it in trade. We're going to make sure that's a priority.
Congratulations. How many issues? Was it just 2, or did you have other issues?
It's 4 issues. It's a 4 issues total, but they're really big. So they're like 32, 28, I think 27, and then like 40 for the last one. So they're double size issues.
Was this half of the series done before your child was born, or was that something you came up with like kind of during the beginnings?
No, it was before my child was born. It was probably when she was pregnant. I was working on it and paying the artist, and it was funny enough, the guy who was the artist had a kid as well, and he was just like, hey, I don't know if I have time to finish it. And when my wife said it, I messaged him out of the blue. I was like, hey, you want to finish this book? And he's like, yeah, I want to finish this book. We both got together, we busted ass, and we finished the book. And it was my first Kickstarters and getting all that together. And it's really well received. People really love it. And I did really well. Like I was raising $6,000 to $7,000 on Kickstarter for a crime book. I don't know if you look at crime books. Crime books are like the 2,500. They don't do well on Kickstarter.
And you said that was like your first one, right?
Yeah. 5 years ago, that was my first Kickstarter.
Wow. So how did it feel to come back to that series after, the birth of your child and like the sudden boost of inspiration? Like, how did it feel picking up the pencil again?
Man, it was tough. It was tough because, as you're writing a story, you realize that, the way you told it, like, for instance, the first issue feels like a Quentin Tarantino movie. It feels 100% like one. And my intent was, because I was a young rookie writer back then, like not now, but I kept it, was oh, I want something familiar to bring them in,
Mhm.
and then I'm going to change the script and show I can write. Like, I'm going to shock you. Well, the problem with that is all people, when they read the first issue, oh, it's just a ripoff of Quentin Tarantino. And I'm like, yes, but like, you got to read the rest and you'll know that like I got my own stuff. And like,
Mhm.
so learning those lessons were really fun. And also the ending and the twist and the way I wrote things, I could do it from a more mature level, and it was easier to spread those out as I've had more time and develop my craft. Because like I said, I was writing, I don't know if you've ever ran a role-playing game, like live action role playing. So you run like weekly, like every Sunday or whatever for like 4 hours. But throughout the week, people are sending you emails about what their character is doing during that week. So I'm telling stories with people all the time, and people are coming over my house and running things. Like, it's like a full-time effing job that you're not getting paid for. It's not a good plan. It's fun that you get to hang out with your friends and do that, but beyond that, so I was really skilled at telling that and doing it. I would have done it differently now. I would have made sure I got it to 24 pages and stuff like that. But it was kind of cool. And it's one of the greatest things about Kickstarter, the freedom, right? When we go to the comic store, it's going to be 20 to 24 pages. If it's double size, it's going to cost you a lot extra. Where in Kickstarter, you can kind of do whatever you want. Books vary in size and what they get because nobody's telling you, hey, man, that your return is going to be blah, blah, blah. Like no one's figure out the hard math of how little pages you have to do to make an issue to make sure you're profitable. Like, all that stuff's out the window because you're just doing whatever the story dictates, which I think is a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think you don't end up like sinking yourself into a hole or a corner you can't get out of, right? Like, because there's really not restrictions holding you back. You're able to kind of just go and run with it. But in that same aspect, do you think maybe that might lead to some trouble? Like, someone might accidentally put themselves into a hole or a corner because they have too much room to play with.
It is, yeah. One of the things when I was trying to pitch it around for a distribution to like a Scout or Source Point is they taught me that because the ending is like double sized, like that's not going to work. Because in comics, so if you go to the direct market, your first issue is going to be the best selling of it all. Issue 2 is going to be half of what issue 1 is. Issue 3 is going to be half of what issue 2 is, and like it dwindles down.
That's
to
so depressing.
right.
Think about.
So Kickstarter, you're going up every issue. You go up and grow. So having the issue that's more pages at the end is not the best plan, right? So I rewrote the story, added some pages, and separated it out. So like it's a 5-issue. If I ever went to the direct market, it'd be a 5-issue series instead of a 4 to kind of make it play out. And it actually like God with me, like made it work because in every one of my issues, I have a flashback. And then in issue 4, because it's 40 pages, I have another flashback in it. So I can cut it at the flashback, and every issue would start with a flashback, which is kind of cool. It worked out very kismet, which is very nice. But yeah, that was my first work, and I'm super proud of it. Now, we've had a couple of distributors who it'll probably be published this year. We're talking to some people, but I really want to get that trade and kind of own it first before I like give it to anybody else.
So we have Wesley Gift just back this. Can't wait. Hey, thank you for back. And we always love seeing back into the show. That's awesome, Wesley. Thank you for joining us once again. So you said you're up to 12 issues a year that you're releasing?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Not of like one title, of various titles. Yeah.
Wow. So, I mean, I know you said a lot of that, came from like your days when you would write stories for LARPing. But like, how do you keep that engine just going? That is impressive.
So a lot, I really want to make it as high as I can. And I know that age is against me, right? Comics are a young man's game. I mean, comics are a weird thing, right? Are you a Marvel and DC guy? Or you buy people? Yeah. I'm literally fighting so I can get fired in like 3 to 4 years, right? Because nobody lasts past 3 to 4 years. Like, there's exceptions and outliers, of course, but most people last like Cullen Bunn is no longer relevant to Marvel and DC. He's relevant everywhere else, but to Marvel and DC, he's out, right? Like, where back in the day he was doing everything. Like, it's such this weird thing, and I know that time's kind of against me, so I'm trying to pump as much thing as I out. So when I go to an editor, I'm just be like, look at all this stuff. Look at my sales records. What can I do? Like let's get there. Let's get there as fast as I can, because I really want to do this. I want You know, I don't have a retirement plan. You know, I didn't plan those things ahead. I was raising my kid. I was a single father raising a kid. I didn't save. I didn't have that time to do anything. And then when I ran my own business, like there's so many ways to get out of paying taxes. Like I'll be honest, so I did it. So like I look at that, like it's how I'm raising money for my kids. Is I need a couple of these to be selling forever, right?
Yeah.
Always selling on Amazon and doing stuff to help keep my stuff,
It's
going.
crazy what you could use as a write-off. I mean, I just started doing the tax write-off, like 25% of our rent, because like I have a room dedicated, like this whole entire room, this is real. This isn't a wallpaper. Like, so I show the tax person, I'm like, listen, I have a room. Like, what can we do with that? He's like, well, 25% of your rent, a little bit of your electricity, some of your internet. I'm like, what about the stuff I buy? They're like, yep. I'm like, okay, yep. So everything I backed this year, tax write-off. Like, my girl is probably sick and tired of hearing tax write-off because, like, I buy it. I'm like, don't worry, we just gotta wait a year. She's like, don't say it. So, what are you doing to keep the creative juices flowing? Though, I mean, 12 issues. I know. Just the desire and the dream, but is that it? There has to be something that's like, what are you doing to make sure you're kind of hitting that mark, hitting your standard every time?
Well, it's tough, right? Because each books have different standards, right? Certain books I'm trying to do this with, some are doing different things. So each book has its own different desires, and my Kickstarters vary. We just did a children's book for Orange Cone that funded last week. It was only under $2,000. But I also have Cthulhu Invades Wonderland, which is $50,000. Like they gasp, I have my Granite State Punks where it's a 10 grand, but it's got a Scout deal, where I'm doing stuff with Scout Comics. So how I do it, one, I have ADD, so I jumped into my different titles, which is great. Two, I've got stuff like we're going to talk about tonight, No Contest, where people are hiring me to write stuff. So that helps get that flow. And then unlike other people, I love the sales process of it. Right. I love selling. I have no problem selling. I'm a salesman by trade. So selling my comics and selling my stuff. And it feels so good. Like I want to buy your stuff and I want to buy it because your name's on it. Like that means so much to me.
Oh yeah.
And making sure I'm right by them and doing something right by them and getting to where I need to go. So yeah, so I jump around between the titles and then I always want to partner with people. I didn't want to be a publisher. My whole goal was, all right, I'm going to write 3 series, going to finish them. These 3 trades will help me get into Marvel and DC. But then, I did this partner. Oh, are you good at anthologies? Oh yeah, I'm great at anthologies, and try to figure it out. And then it became a publishing company overnight. I hope I answered the question. I may have just read.
Yeah. So let's talk about your company though. So that all got created from just an anthology?
So my company Orange Cone was from the beginning, like my goal, but it was a fake company kind of. It was like Orange Cone was just going to publish Travis Gibb books, right? So we broke down in 4 Dead Bodies. It was doing really well. And then I started doing stuff. And my wife was like, all right, this is great, but what book could you do that would help, would make a decent amount of money? Because we saw all these people do it. I was like, oh, anything Cthulhu. And I was like, oh, and I'm pretty good. I'm really good at public domain. Let's like Cthulhu and Oz. So I gathered all my friends who I've met in comics who are more talented than me and said, hey, we work on this book with me. And we all did it together. We put it together. We went out, I think it was like 30,000. That helped. And then I met a guy, I had a book idea. He hired me to write something for him. It didn't work out. And I was like, hey, can I have that idea? And that was Voodoo Nations. Can I have that idea? I'll tweak it so it's very different from your concept, but I have an idea that really works with that. So I did that book, and that's become a series. We're hitting issue 4 this year. And then I've been hired to do a book called Expired, which is also coming out this year. It's a sci-fi book. Someone's like, hey, I have this idea for a comic. I don't know how to write. Can your company publish it? So we did. And, it's all these things just trickle, like people hiring me to do things and going from there, one after another to another to another, and trying to make as many books as I can and trying to do the best books I can. I'm very lucky. Like Granite State Punk, this book
here, hold on 1 second. Let me go ahead. Let's get a close up of that baby.
Yeah, this comes out in Scout. So this is my baby. This is one of the first books that I've done where my art, when you're doing indie comics, people don't think about it, but you have to pay what you can afford. Mm-hmm. It's just reality. It's not that it's bad. It's just you can pay what you can afford. And then as you get good at this, you can afford someone better. And it keeps growing and growing to better art. But better art produces better product, produces better, more people backing, things like that. Well, my grandmother died, and I had some extra money, and I was like, I could do one book, just one, the way I want to do it. And that was Granite State Punk. He's the guy who I wanted. He's the guy that I would have never chose anybody else. I wanted to do a punk rock book. I wanted to talk about my family. I want to talk about New Hampshire. So you may not know a lot about New Hampshire, but there's this face in New Hampshire. Here, I can bring it up again. Where'd it go? It was on that page that I showed you right there. So see that face right there? Or middle finger? So that is on every coin of New Hampshire, every license plate, everything. It's called the Old Man in the Mountain. It fell in like 2013. And I've always been upset about it because literally it's a landmark of the whole friggin' state. So I want to tell a fictional story of when that happened. So I got to tell a story about my state. And it was very cathartic because my parents, I had every 4 years for a little bit, my grandmother, my dad, and my mom died all sudden, 4 years ago.
Jesus Christ,
man. I get like 2 years off, then a death, 2 years off, then a death. So it was crazy. And I started hating the state. I started hating where I came from, and I already shared earlier that I had problems with what was going on there. So I started really hating everything about it. But then I had a kid. Me and my wife have a 4-year-old son. And I realized that I had to get over it, right? Because you have to show your kid where you come from. So I had to get over it. I had to get over the pain, had stuff. So I've been writing, and it's very cathartic and like kind of getting my emotions about and like being angry. So punk rock really helps, right? I can be angry and kind of spin it. And it did really well and got picked up by Scout. So we've been very lucky in that. It's led to other things for like Coins of Judas that I got picked up from Band to Bards, and it's led to kind of a different route. So I got all these Kickstarter, then I've got all these direct market books as well.
So before we dive into the Kickstarter, because we're going to be pulling that up in just a few moments, I am curious about what does your routine look like when you get ready to sit down and do a script? Is it different every time? Do you have maybe like a certain playlist that you like to put on, or like how do you get into the mindset to get to writing?
Wow, that's a really good question. So I always have fully fleshed idea and concept before I go to page. So I don't write, we'll see where it goes. I tend to go beginning, middle, and end and know what it says. My mindset has to be based on whatever I'm writing. So one of the secrets, and this is a secret that I've actually never shared, I don't think, live.
Ooh.
You grab any of my books, that is an orange cone book. So like, Coins of Judas or Broke Down in 4 Dead Bodies or Voodoo Nations, you'll notice that I name every name of the story is a music. So it's a soundtrack. It's of a band. So like Broke Down in 4 Dead Bodies is a band called Fun. I really like Fun. Voodoo Nations is Queen. Coins of Judas is Aerosmith. So I kind of pick a band and a vibe. Like this is the vibe that I want to go to. So that's the band, and then I pick the music that kind of goes to that. Obviously, that's not everything that I do, but I try to have a voice, and I try to sort of the main thing I do for any of my story is what's the main crust of it. What is it like? For instance, Voodoo Nations is about my wife. When I go back to my mom dying. When you have someone die on you, have you had someone personal that really meant something to you die? Yeah, like you change that changes you forever, and you don't know how, you don't know why, but you're different from that moment to on. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, dude, I lost my father to stage 4 lung cancer when I was 9 years old. And like, I remember like being like 15 or 16, being like, I changed my whole personality to adapt, like to make friends. Cause I was like so mentally, I didn't realize I became a whole new mentally, like tried to become like to fit in, like, so I can like, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm just like older, like, wow, dude, that is fucked.
yeah. So my wife, I hadn't quite proposed to her yet. We were still, a year in. We knew we really wanted to be together and we were going down that path, but I was different. Like, I just knew, I was like, I'm not here. Like, I don't know where I am, and I don't know if I'm going to come back or who I'm going to be when this is all over. I know I love you and I know I want to be with you. That hasn't changed, but I don't know who the fuck I am right now. My mom messed me up. My mom was in AA, I talked to her. I literally went to New Orleans with my brother, like flew him down from New Hampshire, and we were drinking in New Orleans. That is so messed up. My mom was in AA, right? Yeah. Like, I'm not thinking right. I'm grieving. I'm trying to figure it out and process it. So Voodoo Nations is really about like that. It's my wife, a fictional version of my wife, like fighting for me, and the like trying to figure out who this guy is and whether or not it's worth fighting for and what love's worth. And I'm a little biblical stuff, equally yoked. I believe that you become one flesh when you get married, so kind of tackling those issues. So I find a big core element to every one of my stories. Like, this is the crux of what's important. When we talk about Granite State Punk, he's a recovering alcoholic, and he's a real recovering alcoholic, not oh, I'm gonna be clean. No, man, he's gonna mess up all the time. He's gonna relapse all the time, like, for real. Because I used to go to the meetings with my mom. Like, those guys would relapse weekly. Like Monday clean, Tuesday not clean, Wednesday clean.
It's almost like they were getting clean because they had to. Like, they got in trouble, and they were like, okay, well, I'll go. Like,
right. So trying to find that heart, because I think any story that you're going to tell, it has to be about love and bringing love into the world. Like, some aspect has to be about goodness in the world. I mean, I guess it could be evil if you're writing a slasher or horror, but stuff I write tends to be like trying to do good in the world. How do we do that? Because that's what I grew up. I didn't have, I grew up on comic books. I didn't have a Bible to tell me my right and wrong. Spider-Man taught me what was right and wrong. He also told me it's really hard to manage 2 chicks at the same time. Like, he taught me lots of stuff, right? Yeah, Spider-Man taught me, like, hey, you can be a douche as long as you have more money than everybody else. Like, I learned a lot of things.
Spider-Man taught me, if you become a Spider-Man, wear protection, because that fluid is very toxic and it's going to give your girl cancer. Holy crap. Did you ever read that storyline? Oh my goodness! It's
wild. And like during the Clone Saga, I remember like Peter smack. They wanted to like villainize Peter to get Ben Reilly to be the main Spider-Man, and he hits Mary Jane. And I was like, I don't know what's happening here. Like, I remember being traumatized by it, like actually like hurt by it, And that's like talking the stuff you read in Walking Dead. Walking Dead actually shocking you like while you're reading stuff. I remember being in a Walmart when Andrea died. Like, I was at a Subway and I was like, and like everyone looks over to me like I'm having a heart. Oh no, someone just died in the comment. You guys saw the show, right? Like,
spoilers.
Right, spoiler. Like, these things affect you. So that's what I want to write, is things that affect you. I want to be someone's favorite comic. So how do I do that?
How do you feel about the? Aren't they coming with like a spinoff for the Walking Dead series?
Yeah, they're coming out with a couple of them for the you're talking about for the movies, right? For the TV show? Yeah. I guess they're talking. Andrew, I didn't love the ending. I thought the ending for the comic book was better, but I think they're having a Negan one. I don't know. I kind of watch them after the fact, like in binge.
Like, I've watched one episode of The Walking Dead and I have not seen it since. I'm that guy. Same thing with Game of Thrones. Like, it's. But hey, I'll get there eventually. One thing I am.
Your name is keeping it geekily.
I know. I did watch The Last of Us, though. All right.
We'll cut up. I hear you.
Hey, and that is one thing we like to do here, is keep it geekily. And I think the best way to keep it geekly is to talk about what we're here to talk about tonight, and that is No Contest. So this is a book that you were hired to write for, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Keep It Geekly is a book that I write with a local lawyer named Daniel Martinez. So he was a fan of my work. He started reading some of my comics, and he literally sat with me and was like, hey, how can I invest? I don't really know what that looked like. And I have fear of losing rights to things, like anybody who's in a creative space, like you're just like, I don't want to lose. If you're giving me money, I like the money part, but I don't like any of the other stuff. Like the paying back, the like rights or any of those. I don't want any of that. But I like the money part, and I like creating comics. So I was like, hey man, why don't we make a comic for you? And see if you even like this. Let's make a comic that's kind of like an advertisement for your law firm. We'll write a fictional story. We'll kind of do it. Cause he's a character, man. Like, this guy legitimate as a fight lawyer. He goes to MMA fights, has a boxing gym literally in his office. He does criminal defense. Like, he'll get involved in stuff, gives out tons of charity. He's a character. And he has his own struggles that I'm not going to share his own struggles, but he has his own life story that's been a little crazy. I was like, well, why don't we write some of that in the page? So we wrote No Contest #1. It did really well. It really spoke to him. It helped him. And what a cool thing it is, right? Like, when someone comes to your law firm, you're like, oh, here's a comic book I did that kind of tells you what I'm all about and do those things. So we decided to make it a series. So we're going to build it out to the trade. So we wrote an issue 2. we decided in issue 2 though it needed to be more comic-y. So issue 1's like an episode of Law and Order, but issue 2 is more of an issue of Daredevil, right? We got gangs, they're wearing masks, they're doing stuff. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I enjoy writing it. I enjoy what we're doing with it. And it's really cool to be part of a process with somebody else, you know. We're seeing the art together. We're giving critiques together. We hired a great art team from Brazil to put it together. And it's a lot of fun. So Orange Cone, what we do is we produce the book, but it's 100% his. So it's his, under his brand, it's his Kickstarter, all that stuff. We just kind of help put them together and try to make it a book, though it is about a real person, like make it fun and not like an ego trip or like a selling pitch, right? Like let's make it fun. Let's make it a real comic. And we had some real stakes in this issue and doing stuff. But because he's connected with all these MMAs, we have like an MMA fighter cover with all these MMA guys.
I seen it. It looks so realistic too. Were those like actual guys?
Those are all, one is a fictional character. All the rest are real MMA guys. So if you go, and some of them are UFC, we can't mention UFC on the, in the book just because of their rights. But yeah, there's some couple of people. I'm looking up their names right now because I always forget. I'm not a UFC guy. I'm a wrestling guy. You know, WrestleMania. I like my fighting scripted. It's very important to me.
Real quick, we have Benjamin Morse saying same could never get into The Walking Dead. Hey Ben, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate seeing you in chat. You know, I don't know what it was. It just, maybe it was in the beginning that like Rick's you know, his best friend was like smashing out his wife, and I was just like, yep, I'm done. I can't get past this episode. This killed it for me.
Yeah, well, and again, like some people really loved it. They picked up for a little bit, but I feel it died quick. Like it was still airing tons of episodes. So clearly people were watching it, but like it went from like, this is the most important thing is changing our genre to, you still watch Walking Dead? That's still on? Like,
so I think right now would be a perfect segue. Let's go ahead and pull up the Kickstarter, check it out, and see what all this hype is about. We are looking at No Contest issue 1 and 2, MMA boxing meets Law and Order. Currently at $649 of a $3,000 goal with 21 backers and 29 days left to go. Off to a strong start. I know you said, you know, this isn't really, you're not really like in charge of running the Kickstarter, but how are you feeling about the campaign so far?
Yeah, I love the campaign. In fact, that's one of the things that breaks my heart about this book. I think this book is really good. And I think that because there's a real life person in it, the lines get crossed, right? You kind of feel like, oh, there's a real life person. Like, is it really about him? And it's a fictional version of him, but it's all written by me. I don't know the law. I don't know, like I just claimed, I don't know anything about MMA, but I've been having a lot of fun in building this big story arc of it, you know, now that it's a mini series versus just a one shot. And we've got to do a lot of really cool things with it too. He's a big comic guy. That's him and me at a comic show. All the things to the left are all those books that I produce. And that's him and I with issue 1.
And issue 2 looks gorgeous. I love this cover. We have Ben saying it was the scene where they covered themselves in zombie blood and guts to get away from them. Checked it out. Book looks great. Thank you, Ben. Definitely appreciate it. Yeah, this looks gorgeous. What are we seeing on here? The guy with the mask is one bad looking mother effer. Like,
yeah, they're brand new. We don't give them a name, so I'm not gonna do it. But they are a gang that works that seem to want Daniel Martinez. So in this issue, in last issue, basically he helps a fighter get basically they were trying to take his winnings and they tried to screw him over. They set him up. He finds out the conspiracy, kind of beats it. In issue 2, we kind of go off from that. Fighters have heard about this and now they're coming to him and go, hey, can you get me out of this bad contract? Hey, can you do this? So all these fighters want him to represent him. So he's willing to do that, even though he's a criminal defense lawyer. But the guy to the right, the guy with the scar, Bruno, he manages all the local fighting scene and he wants it to stop. So he hired some bad dudes like the guy in the mask and his gang to take him out. So this cover right here is like a smashing glass of all the things that's important to Daniel and what happens in the issue.
I love it. I love it. So not being very experienced with like writing law and MMA, you know, how did you get yourself prepared for this role? Did you rely on Daniel a lot for his expertise, or what type of media did you consume to kind of put yourself in those shoes?
I had to watch some Law and Order, which I do not watch, but I had to watch some of that. And then I had to talk to him. And I like, I love Daredevil. So I read some law-ish. I actually read Daredevil and She-Hulk. So I read both the law comics, and I'm more than willing, and I read Batman. So if there's all three major lawyers in continuity, I support. So I had to do that, and then learning about MMA and the fights. Like I had like a count out. If you scroll down a little bit, it's kind of cool. That's a homage of a Daredevil cover. And I think they did a great job.
Oh yeah, they nailed it.
Get the Daredevil cover. There's a really stuff, and that is 100% like, how most homages are like, oh, we're just throwing a homage. We think it's cool. Literally, that cover that we put together is what happens in the issue. Like everything on that cover represents what happens in the issue, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, that's
so
really
it's
cool.
not just a homage for like props. It's a homage because it matters. And I love that cover. That's my favorite.
So do they all like wear the mask as well?
Yeah, they're all part of a gang. We don't say a lot about them in here, but they mess things up, and they're part of a local gang, who do some bad things. It looks like someone dies, so maybe we'll have to see.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So, but yeah, they're very cool.
And we have some of these interiors right here. We did have these on an image slideshow, but now we get the opportunity to see them a little bit larger. And I love how it starts off with, talking about a choice and how significant that one choice can be. I feel like even, inside fighting and outside fighting, often the choices we make can lead us down the very path we walk today.
Yeah, that's the theme kind of No Contest. So I want to, he's a criminal defense lawyer, so that means he's getting criminals off the street. People are like, oh, that's bad. Like, right? We don't want criminals no, we're getting keeping criminals on the street. Like the opposite. He's not getting them off the street. He's keeping them on the street. But as someone who, grew up in a barren home, having a parent versus not is a big thing. If you have a guy who did a crime who's going to face 20 years and you can get him home in 5 so he can have a dad, that kid has a better chance of not becoming on the street, right? There's these things that you got to factor in. There's a lot of variables. That's why we chose No Contest, because it's kind of it's both it's a fighting term, you get to no contest yield, and it's also a law term of of pleading to stuff. So that the whole theme of the book is trying to balance the good and the bad of the world, like really looking at it from a lens of, yes, but he did this, but what's the long-term repercussions? Unlike a Joker, like Joker should have really been murdered. Like that guy's crazy.
Yeah.
Really showed real life guys and doing real life systems. What made you a criminal? What made you this? So the first page you just showed from the first issue. This is from the second issue.
Batman's listening to you right now like, what'd he say?
I'm not killing Joker.
How'd it feel, with the first issue kind of just being like in real life, like a court hearing, and then making it a little bit more comic-y? How was that transition for you?
It was good. It was a tough conversation with the creator. I mean, he loves comics. He reads comics with me. In fact, we talk about our pull every week. It was really good, feeling, because the first issue he was like, I think that MMA is going to be a big fit. And we found out that MMA doesn't really translate to comics. You'll notice that wrestling fans read comics, but you don't see a lot of MMA fans reading comics. They're not universal. I thought they were universal. It made logical sense to me, but they weren't. I was like, okay, well, for issue 2, if we're going to keep doing this, we need to make it more comic-y. So how much comic-ism can we put in this? And it's also going to help make it show that this is a fictional version of you, not a real version of you, right? If we add some comic stuff. So that's why we added the gang in there. We're adding some extra stuff, making it a little bit more superhero-ish and doing that aspect. So
what do you think is the connect with wrestling and MMA? Like, why do you think wrestling hits where MMA doesn't?
Scripted storytelling, man. I think that's it. Like when you watch wrestling, you know the feud, you know what's going on, you know who the good guy and the bad guy is, just like on Spider-Man. Green Goblin's bad and Spidey's good, right?
So who is the creative team involved? Was it the same team for issue 1 as issue 2?
Yeah, 100%. Like this is that's one of the things that I try to do, is try to make sure that we have the 100% of the creative team staying on. Like I said, this is a team from Brazil. They love this book, and they do some cool stuff. They actually do Zorro in Brazil.
That's awesome.
Right. So like it's kind of cool. They're kind of a big deal. So they're doing lots of stuff in that aspect, and I think that they put together a great book. And then we try to get the variant cover artists from all over to help, kind of showcase stuff.
Mm-hmm. This is so cool. I mean, so what trials and tribulations did you guys run into? It can't be all just a walk in the park, taking, a fight lawyer who does MMA and putting him into a comic book. Was there any hitches along the way?
No, the only hitches is like enthusiasm and trying to figure it out, and like explaining Kickstarter, right? Like he's a lawyer. He can pay to just print this, right? And we can get it to the comic store. No big deal, right? He can pay for the whole thing. But I'm like, we're building a fan base on Kickstarter. And I have a fan base on Kickstarter. They would love to read this book. How are they going to get it? And like trying to build that and trying to change the mindset. And then him trying to change my views on criminal law, right? Because, I tend to be a little on the liberal side. So like trying to understand all these things and trying to get it. And then adding the fiction and nonfiction in there. And then legal rights. Like, so for issue 2, we were supposed to have Ghostface Killer. That would have been so cool. He is a lawyer for the Ghostface Killer, and what that looks like how hard that is to pull off. So, all right. So some of these guys, the 2 people in the front are big fighters. So one of them, I just brought up over here for you. So the guy on the left is Lorenzo Hunt. He's the Juggernaut Lorenzo Hunt. He is he does some MMA, some low level UFC. He also has a couple of titles, and then the guy to the other side is Mike Davies, who's Beast Boy in the UFC. He's a very big deal. He's a UFC featherweight champion, which is pretty cool. So that's a big deal. And then Elvis Espinoza is on the top, and he works for PFL, which is another professional fight league. And then the guy to the right is a character that we created for the comic, and then that's Daniel in the center.
That's so cool. That's awesome. Has Daniel has he done fights too, or just
yeah, he's a boxer.
Yeah, that's cool. That's awesome. And then Page is complete as well, so issue 2's already done, or
correct. Yeah. So one of the things that I stand out versus other Kickstarters, not that I'm the only one who does it, but all my books are 100% done before they launch, meaning the art is 100% done. The lettering may not be done, it may not be edited, but the major big bulk of everything, all the covers and the stuff is done. So that's a big deal when we do this stuff.
So real quick, let's just head over some of these tiers as well, so you can get No Contest digital for $4 just for the PDF. Right. You can get issue 1 and 2 for $8. So how many pages altogether is that?
So that would be 44 pages. So the first issue is 20 and 24 for the next. So
yeah, outstanding price for $8. Can't beat that. We have $10 or more for the physical of issue 2 with the cover A. 15 or more for issue 1 and 2 physical copies, both cover A's on those, and then you get your first variant. So cover B at $20, and you get that Daredevil homage, beautiful cover right there. We have pledge 20 or more, you get cover C as well, and then cover D at 30, so you get the Pro Fighter cover as well. And then we have 70 or more issue 1 and 2 with the variant bundle. So what other titles can we see in this variant bundle? Is it just all No Contest?
It's all No Contest, but it's all the covers from issue 1 and all the covers from issue 2.
Okay. And yeah, at $70, that is one hell of a bang for your buck right there. We have 100 or more No Contest 2 collector's kit. So what else is going to be inside of this?
So with that, you'll get, he has a shirt that he does. You'll polybag, and then those 2 prints right there are exclusive to that set.
Awesome. And then get drawn into plus 2 covers as well. So appear in the comic for $175. Right. There's only 6 of those left, so jump on it while you still can, guys.
Yeah, and that's those 6, so that sample picture right there, that's 6 people who've already paid that. So they've already been willing, they bought it beforehand. So, we have another 6, we're going to have a double page spread on that. And basically what the concept is, you're watching it, it's basically all these fighters come to him. So whatever your character, it could be you, or if you want to dress up as a fighter, if you want to see yourself both, come up to him and ask him to defend him in a law case, and then he gives a witty response, and we're going to do some fun stuff with that.
Yeah, and if you want a six-pack abs, you can get it for the cheap low price of $175. So save yourself some time in the gym and just get those bad boys drawn on.
Exactly.
And that's it, guys. So right here is the link. Be sure to check this out. And back while you still can. Travis, after going through this Kickstarter in its entirety, what would you like to say to anyone who might be on the fence about backing?
Well, one, if you message Cody, he can give you the digital. He'll give you the digital of issue 1 for free. I'll make sure he has it. So if you message Cody, sorry to put that work on you, but if you really want to read it and you're like, I don't know if I like it, Cody will send you the digital.
I got you.
He'll send it. He'll get you the digital for absolutely free, so you can try out the first issue. The second thing is, I think you'll really like it. Like you're gonna get some real law situations because we have a real lawyer being part of it. So it's not unlike Daredevil where they're kind of fictional lawsuits. You're gonna have real law situations as well as real fighting situations. Because I learned a lot. Did you know, Cody? Are you an MMA guy or UFC guy?
I watch it a little bit.
Okay, so you know how you get these guys with like, oh, he's got like a 7-6 record, and he's got a 7-6 record. How we or 0-7, 7-0, 7-0. How do they get these records? They will go overseas to like Brazil and literally get matches where the guy will lose to them on purpose, but they're pro fighters for like $100 a match, and they'll do like a weekend of fights, like 3 fights a night.
They're called journeymen, aren't they?
Yeah. So these guys will lose fights so these guys can get their record up so they can have these fights together. Like, it is wild.
I love the memes. I'm not... Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's wild, like the underground of fighting. And like, if you work for this group, you can't work for this. Like, it is so competitive. And talking to these MMA, because when he does like a grand opening or does one of his parties, like they're all there talking about like all this corrupt and crazy stuff in the MMA world. So, and for what, right? Most of these guys are never going to get to UFC. They're like 30-year-old something or somethings who are literally beating the shit at each other for $125. Like, what the fuck? What is going on? I don't understand.
Dude, it's because the only reason I know about that is because I would see the memes. Or like they'll fight in like a tank top, and then it'll be like 0, and then 2, and then 98 losses, and it's like, what? Like, why are you still going? Like, yeah, but $100 to take a loss, and I mean, you know, getting your ass beat is one thing, but often like it's head trauma. They're like you're taking blows to the head after so many rounds. Like that does something like to you mentally.
Yeah. So it's wild trying to figure all this stuff out, and like that's the stuff you'll get to learn. We're gonna go really deep into that stuff. And again, Ghostface Killer could be a possibility. He is Daniel Martinez is actually the lawyer for Ghostface Killer. He actually represents him. He's an entertainer as well.
You know, I thought it was really interesting you brought up the corruption part too, because that's a big thing that's happening with the UFC now. Not like today's standards, right? Is a lot of fighters they're choosing to do something else because they're getting paid more for the fight than they ever would make at UFC. And then a big thing is that slap boxing stuff that's been going on too, right? I don't know if that's associated with the same thing.
It's not associated with the same thing, but that's like hella more dangerous, right? Like you are literally bracing yourself to be hit. Like in boxing, regardless of in any fight, like your goal is to take as least damage as possible. You keep fighting, regardless of, you know, obviously there you get cold cocked and stuff like that, but your head was probably dodging. In those slap fights, you're literally like, all right, go ahead. Like
and they're going fetal. After most hits, people are like going fetal and like starting to shake a little. It's like, I'm good. Right.
We got an NFL guy falling in the middle of an NFL match this year in slap fights, putting people in fetal positions. Like, what are we doing?
Yes.
What is happening? What is entertainment these days?
The slappening, man. Oh my goodness. So speaking of 2023, Travis, what's next for you? What's up on the plate? I know we were talking about Grand State Punk getting released from Scout.
Yeah, next week, 329. That's a big deal. That's a big thing. If you're at MegaCon, if you're in the Florida or Orlando area and you come to MegaCon, I have the whole creative team. I've flown out. The letters from Canada, he's out. Jerome, Patrick Brumeyer, the guy who's the artist, is from Ohio. He's flying out.
Ohio.
And Cody, it's been wild. Like, I am paid April 15th. I'm going to this con in New Hampshire. They paid me to fly me out there, and they ordered 250 copies of my book with a variant cover. They're putting it in the VIP bags for everyone who got there. How cool is that? Like,
let's go, dude.
That's for such a like higher level that I'm at, and that I'm so blessed that this is happening to me and getting to that level. The sales were really, really good. So that's Then we got Expired coming out for the Kickstarter. We have the next Kickstarter, and that's hopefully going to release before the end of the month. I finished the Kickstarter, got to submit it to Kickstarter. Hopefully they'll approve it. We've got the Broke Down trade after that. We've got Cthulhu Invades Neverland, which is really cool. We've, in fact, actually, even on our website, if you go to orangeconeproductions.com, you can actually get a preview copy. So we got it. And how cool is that, Cody? I'm at the point now, because I do so many books, that I have books that I can't put on Kickstarter because I'm so busy. So there's a couple of books that go direct to my website and like you can buy, which is so amazing that we're at this level that we can do stuff like that. Voodoo Nations 4, I can keep going, but I think you got enough. That's the next 4 books. I think we're good. But I got about 12 books this year. It's going to be wild. That's not counting Coins of Judas. If you,
Yeah, you just dropped issue 2 of that, right?
Yeah. So this is done. The first arc is done, and we're doing another one. Coins of Judas is coming back in October with another arc of 2 issues called The Gambler. So it's wild. I'm so excited. I'm so blessed. And I hope I can make it. I hope I get to that next level. I hope everyone who has my phone number from the early days gets to sell it for lots of money. And I get rung by people who want to ask me questions late at night. Like, I'm excited.
Yeah, and I think, putting in the amount of work that you're doing is going to just lead you there. You're going to eventually, they're going to have no choice but to do it, right? It's the brute force tactic. Like, that's kind of like my method. Like, with everyone's like, Cody, like, how do you do all these podcasts every day? It's like, I want this. Like, this is what I want. Like, and it's like that passion, like, takes you and fuels you. But It's almost like, you got to watch yourself, too, because it's like, maybe I'm doing too much. Maybe I need to take a day off and breathe a little bit, right? So I think that brings me to my last question, and that's where I get to ask you for a little bit of advice. And so, as someone who is just doing so much and putting out so much work, what is some of the biggest things you do to make sure you don't burn out? Like, for anyone out there looking to kind of increase their workload without burning out, what could they do to just make sure they're able to maintain that balance?
Yeah, that's really tough, because you're gonna burn out, and I think burning out is when you realize who you are and whether or not you really want this, right? Like, if you burn out and can come back, like that's the stuff. And the people who are burning out and stuff, like I had to let someone go from my Cthulhu Invades, Neverland, who's been a ride or die guy for me for a long time, but he's kind of burned out, and like I can feel it, and it's struggling. And I waited 6 months for a script, and I haven't got there, and these things need to be done. I think the key to that is know when it's coming and take the time. But also don't make it your life, right? So some people, like, and you and I are just as guilty as anybody else. Like, all right, I stream all day, I'm writing this or doing that, and then you're out late night you're up till 2 a.m. talking on a Twitter stream.
Yeah.
That really doesn't help you, right? It doesn't really help your career. Like, but you're doing it because you love the community, you love the people in it. You want to get your name out. You want to get your name associated with this. You want someone in that group to maybe go, oh, I want to be a guest on your show next. Like, there's all these variables. Mm-hmm. Make sure you take that time for your wife. Make sure your family's really important. And I think that will always keep you balanced, because you know that what you're doing it for. I think a lot of people forsake work for everything else, and I don't do that. When COVID hit, like, everyone's like, oh my God, this is horrible, I can't leave. Like, I was like, great, I've been wanting to spend more time with my family, this is awesome. Yeah. Like, I actually took it from the other point of view. Like, the whole world is going to shit. Every church, I'm gonna get a soapbox here for a minute, every church in America prayed, hey, make sure families are together, keep families unified. The minute shit hit the fan, they're just like, no, we got to get away from our families as quickly as possible. Got to get back out there. I got to get to the movies. I got to get to bowling. I got to do all this bullshit. Like, instead of going like, hey, maybe you should just focus on your family. This is your opportunity to see what's going on. Think about the celebrities who never see their kids grow up, who got to spend 2 years with their kids, like, because shut down, they couldn't make their movies, and they had to actually see what their kid's about. How many kids, how much in the suicide rate, like, they don't like to talk about it. If you look at the suicide rate went down during those 2 years because people were home and you were watching what your kid was doing. like you saw the depression that they were going through and trying to deal with it. People were like, oh, this, that. No, the suicide rate went down. They don't like to talk about that, but it did, because we cared and do that. And I think that's the most important, is just focusing on the things that matter in your life and why you're doing it. And comics matter tremendously to me. I'm not saying that they don't, but if I don't have my family and I can't raise my kids properly or do that, like, what's it for? Like,
Yeah.
I'm writing for strangers, which are great that they can enjoy me. And we've heard this, right, of people who their kids are talking about how my dad was just doing all these things for other people. He loved that enjoyment of like acting and being out for everybody else, but never for himself. And I think that's important.
Yeah, all that came to mind right there was Tom Brady, right? Like his kid, like only time his kid's able to spend time with him is if he boots up like the PlayStation 4 Madden, right? I could never do that. That's like, you know, a big thing with interviewing. Like I always made sure like it never fell on the times I had my kids. Like if it did, like they're either at school or they're sleeping. And I even tried to get to the point where I'm scheduling the days, you know, that they're with their moms. Like, so that way I'm making sure none of this touches them because, you know, that time's there, yeah, for them. And you're right. If you're just letting your passion overrun it, then I mean, you're not even being a parent at that point. You're just like chasing your dreams and you're not even giving them a chance to have theirs.
Yeah. I mean, you can't, you know, what's the point of going on vacation if you're, you know, if you're not there present, like if you're somewhere else? Like, these things have to matter, and these things have a cost. You know, you're going to pay for it one way or the other. You know, if you don't pay attention to your kids now, like where are they going to be? My daughter, so I have a daughter who's turning 21 this year, which is friggin' wild. She's turning 21 this year, and when she left, she like didn't want anything to do with me. She left the house. She moved in with a friend of mine, and I was panicking, right? My friend stopped contacting me and was like, I'm going to take your daughter now. Like, it was crazy to me and losing my mind. But, you know, someone sat down with me. He's like, do you think you're a good dad? Like, and really like, do you think you're a good dad? Then no one can tell you your relationship with your daughter. And I literally just had to calm down for a minute. A month later, my daughter was calling me. We're back in a relationship, trying to build it really fast. But I was so scared of letting go, and I didn't realize, like, no, I did the work to earn that. Like, no one can take that away from you. But if you don't, and you let all these other things, or even the pursuit of money, like money being the objective of everything, like that stuff consumes who you are over time. And you know, if you don't enjoy like getting the book and reading it and loving that, dude, I created this, it's in the world, loving your kid. I love my kid. They're in the world. I can do great things. You know, it's stuff. And we get, you know, you and I both shared offline, you know, we have baby mamas. Like, it's so horrible when you see people who live in that drama. Like, you guys split up 7 years ago, whatever. Why are you still fighting? Or like, I have a friend of mine who posts every week, my ex-wife stole half of my retirement even before we were married. Like, the court system's got to change. Like, who cares? Like, it doesn't matter. Do you have your kids? Do you see your kids? That's all that matters. So what if you have to pay child support, whatever? Yeah, it sucks. It sucks. But you get to see your kids. Like, it's just money. Like, at the end of the day.
And time with your kids is the most invaluable thing out there. You can't ever get that back. There's nothing. You can pay thousands of millions of dollars, billions of dollars, and you'll never get that time you didn't spend with your kids back. Awesome advice, Travis. Thank you so much for swinging by. Everyone watching, this has been one hell of a chat. It's awesome to finally get you on. We're going to have to get you back on for your future releases. Everybody out there, in the meantime, though, you can back No Contest issue 1 and 2 right here. Be sure to do so. And if you're unable to, simply putting this on Facebook and Twitter is 100% free, and you have nothing to lose. That being said, it is time for us to wrap up. Hope you all have a lovely Tuesday evening. But most importantly, guys, keep it geekly.